Throughout the years that you've been working with families, parents, what are some concerns that you have about the families in Malaysia?
Yeah. My number one concern is most people call it the generation gap. But I feel that it's really the communication gap, whereby I think our young people today are really living in a different era. I remember reading a book by Alvin Toffler called The Third Wave. In that book, he was saying how the first wave was an agricultural wave, where people depended on agriculture for a living. Then as time moves on, people went into a wave of industry. You have got industry mushrooming all over the world. Then he said in the year 2000 and beyond, we're going to move into the wave of technology, where at the press of a button you can communicate with anybody from any part of the world. And therefore, I think we are at that wave whereby information is so easily obtained, so fast, and therefore it's no longer a young person in the United States. They dress the same as a young person here in Malaysia. And therefore, how does people who, like maybe my age, begin to understand the younger people who are growing up in a different age of technology? You know, I tell my father that my memory in my computer now is 1 terabyte, you know. He would say, I only know I'm losing my memory, you know. The terminology itself is different, you know. So I think the understanding of communication, which is so different nowadays compared to before, is one of the challenge. Number two, of course, is the whole media exposure that family are getting today, whereby we are so involved and engrossed with media exposure that sometimes it influences as well in our relationship with our spouse. I talk about things like pornography. I talk about some of the messages that's communicated through different kind of movies and all that. It seems to portray so much of a Hollywood kind of relationship, but in reality you are not having it, and people feel frustrated as a result of that. And therefore you have a divorce rate increasing. Even in our country, it's climbing up very steadily, and therefore how do we really arrest some of these things which we are basically being confronted with? The other challenge I think we are being faced with is really in the area of communication. I think again it's probably an Asian culture, whereby sometimes when there is a conflict, we keep quiet, you know, and conflict cannot be resolved when people keep quiet. And therefore, how do you communicate? How do you fight in a good way, so to speak? You know, conflict is not good. In fact, it is said that the absence of conflict is the predictor of divorce. You know, when people do not have conflict, it's like you are not living to reality. You know, the reality is that we would have conflict, but how do you work through the conflict and become better rather than bitter? You know, as a result of that.
There are a lot of people who say that with technology we're supposed to be closer, but in actual fact, sometimes it creates distance more than that. But how, I mean, it's not something that's going to change. We can't get rid of technology. So how should we deal with it?
Yeah, I think maybe the keyword is intentional. You know, time doesn't change. Right at the beginning of time, there were 168 hours a week. Now we still have 168 hours a week. Technology didn't increase the length of time that we have. So I think if you are intentional in allocating time to build relationship, whether it's a husband and wife relationship or whether it's a parent or child relationship, I think that time would really be the key ingredient. It's really the essence. Once we have time, we can strengthen relationship. You know, I trained as a civil engineer. I know that for my concrete structure to take its strength and fulfill its function, I got to give it time to set. You know, because concrete consists of water, sand, cement, and aggregates or stones. You know. And if this mixture are put together and you want to use it straight away, you can't use it. It's very fluid. But if I give it 28 days, you would have given it time to set and regain its strength. And similarly, I think in relationship, if we have time to work on it, I tend to feel that we would be able to develop relationship better.
Okay. So what is one, if you could choose one advice to give to families that will help them to be stronger, healthier and happier, what would it be?
Can I have 3?
Sure. 3 will do as well.
I have these 3 C's that I'm quite passionate about. Number one is I think there must be an element of commitment. You know, we must know that if we are entering into a married relationship, then it is not to be entered at whim and dissolved at fancy. You know, it's supposed to be I'm committed to for the rest of my life. It's a serious relationship. It's not just to get in and after that, because relationship and people would be affected if it's entered at whim and dissolved at fancies. So I think that's commitment. If I'm a father, I need to be committed in my role as a father, right, and fulfill my role. Because again, statistics have shown that a lot of children who have got or are going through social ills have grown up in a home whereby the father figure is absent. And therefore we need to play our role to show our children what does it mean to be the provider, the carer, you know, the one who loves the mum, who provides for the family and care for the family. So I think commitment. Number two is I think the importance of, as I said just now, time. But I like to call it the consecration of time. That means you set apart time. Consecrate is where you deliberately and intentionally set apart. Because unless you do it, the tyranny of the urgent will take the better of you and you find that you got no more time. You know, I don't know whether you know there's a song called Cats in the Cradle, where a son has always asked the father to spend time with him, but the father was a busy man, there were planes to catch and bills to pay, and just couldn't have time to spend with the son. Until he was a retired man, and now the son is an adult, but the son is a busy man. The father has the time, but the son does not have, you know. So therefore, we must make sure that we consecrate and set apart time, especially, I think, during the formative years of our children, you know, because I think those are the age whereby they are highly impressionable, their receptivity level is the highest. So if we can impress them and lay the foundation when they are young, I believe that when they grow old, they will still have grounded them with, you know, at the beginning. So it's commitment, consecration of time, and the third one is communication. You know, I think...
you can't escape from that.
Yes. I think communication is the essence to any relationship. You know, it's like blood to the body. You know, when blood stops flowing, the body stops functioning. When communication ceases, relationship ceases.
It's true. Thank you so much, Wei Min, for spending this time with us.